Yo, what is going on, guys? Dr. Schwaz here. Welcome back to another PvE class tutorial for Gears 5. Today I'm going to be discussing the Gunner class. This was previously Clayton's class back in earlier operations. So his role as the tank class is to specialize in heavy weapons. The Gunner is equipped to lay down heavy fire and take hits like no other. His ultimate ability is Reflective Shell. While active, it deflects all ballistic damage back to the enemy for 6 seconds. His passive ability allows him to heal for 50% of heavy weapon damage dealt. A much better passive than the old passive he used to have, which I think was damage he took recharged his ultimate. Gunner is a great support class with a skill set that makes him, I think, one of the stronger DPS classes in the game. Probably one of the strongest next to Demolitions and Tactician. Gunner is probably the most versatile class as well. You'll see a lot of footage of different gameplay styles you can play this class with later on in the tutorial, so let's get started with the skill cards. Alrighty, let's get started with Reflex Shredder. It says when Reflective Shell is active, reflected damage deals 55% bleeding damage. This is a skill card I always have on, as it allows the Gunner to maximize his DPS. It can be used to eliminate a group of enemies quickly that may otherwise focus on the rest of your team. It's also a great card if used to fight against enemies like a Stump or a Guardian to quickly eliminate them and prevent them from wiping out the team. A lot of fun to use, and it's real fun to see a Stump and Guardian bleed itself out. Great card to run. Moving on to Serrated Edge, it says 40% bleeding damage with the Torque Bow. This is a great support card to run in your Horde run to allow the Gunner to do some decent damage to his team prior to finding heavy weapons on the field in your Horde games. In Escape, using this card is situational because Torque Bows are only available about 2/3 of the hives, either via elite hunters themselves or finding them in supply rooms. Since this is an explosive weapon, I think this card pairs really well with concussive explosives, which I'll talk about later. Moving on to Heavy Capacity, it says carry 115% more heavy weapon ammo. In Horde, this is always the card I love to run because it maximizes the amount of ammo the Gunner has, and who doesn't want more ammo, right? As far as Escape is concerned, as long as heavy weapons such as Salvo, Tri-Shot, and Mulcher are available, this is a great card to bring as well. On screen, you will see the ammo numbers for each of the 5 heavy weapons with and without the skill cards equipped. So you will see that and see how much bullets you get for, the Salvo, the Tri-Shot, Mulcher, Cryo, and Buzzkill, etc. Alright, moving on to Team Resist. It says when Reflective Shell ultimate ability is active, all allies receive 95% damage resistance for 6 seconds. This is an awesome skill card to run because it can be pretty clutch in situations like boss waves or similar encounters where like the team may be getting overrun and they need to recover so they can resist some damage for a period of time. With 95% damage resistance, teammates can sponge like boom shots, grenades, explosive hits for the duration of the Gunner's ultimate, which is awesome. This is a card I always like to run in Horde, but it's still super useful in areas of Escape as well, where you may need the card to run past enemies to successfully clean the Master Hive. The best thing about this skill card is that there is no range requirement. Alrighty, moving on to Concussive Explosives. It says enemies hit with explosives under 15 meters away are stunned for 3.2 seconds. This is an awesome support card. Makes a Gunner really effective at slowing down bosses or large groups of enemies like Scions and stuff like that. Paired with Heavy Capacity, the Gunner can load up on salvos and keep enemies like bosses stunned for long periods of time, allowing DPS classes like the Demolitions or the Tactician to quickly neutralize the enemy. Before you obtain salvos, I think the Torque Bow can still stun enemies pretty well within 15 meters. You'll see plenty of footage of this card later on in action in the video, so stay tuned. Moving on to Mulcher Mastery. Mulchers deal 80% extra damage. In Horde, with the perk max to 50% damage. And with the skill card max, the Mulcher does 517 damage a bullet. The base damage is 225, so pretty good card to run if you're running in the Mulcher build. If you're running the Mulcher build in Horde, there's a perk called Change on Ammo Regen, which resupplies the ammo for the Tri-Shot and Mulcher, so that you basically never run out of ammo. I think it gives you like 5 Tri-Shot bullets or 5 Mulcher bullets per second at level 10. Great card to run with that perk, and I'll talk about perks a little bit later. In Escape, Mulcher Scions are pretty much found in about half of the hives. However, I think the gunner has more beneficial skill cards if you're going to run an escape. Moving on to ultimate battery. It says ultimate cooldown for allies within 10 meters is reduced by 0.35 seconds each hit you take. This is a skill card I found more useful in escape, especially on like highs that have longer recharge mutators. So like the onslaught, for example, the mines, the descent, examples like that. Classes with longer ult charges like the marksman and demolitions can benefit a lot from this card. If you can isolate like a Juby or a drone and continuously allow it to melee down your gunner teammate, you and the other two teammates that are within 10 meters of that gunner are going to recharge their ultimates much faster. So if you can get like a Juby or a drone to keep downing the gunner over and over again and reviving him, you're going to get your ult back faster with this skill card. Definitely a cool card to run, but it's, as you can see, it's highly situational. Moving on to bait armor. Every hit taken adds 10% damage resistance for 5 seconds up to a maximum of 60%. This is a great skill card to run and to increase the tankiness of the gunner. Basically, every consecutive ballistic hit does a little less damage to you for a brief period of time until you get to the maximum 60% resistance. It's very useful in like escape speed runs where you need to run past some elite drones. For example, like to complete the hive. Moving on to grace period. Receive 5 seconds of immunity upon being revived. This card allows you not to take any damage for 5 seconds after being revived. It can be useful in situations where you just used your ultimate to like run into the spawn, kill some enemies, and then you happen to go down in the process of retreating back. The main drawback with this card is that you have to rely on someone to revive you first. Whether that be a teammate in escape or an engineer or combat medic in horde, could put your teammate in a dangerous situation. So be cautious of that. Moving on to heavy charger. Heavy hits within 4 seconds of each other reduce ultimate cooldown in multiples of 0.014 seconds. This is a card I don't really run in horde because gunner already has a super fast ult charge anyway of 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Fastest in the game actually. However, pairing this card with a Mulcher or a Salvo can even make that recharge even faster, so the gunner can have his ult multiple times a wave or multiple times in the escape run. Alright guys, heavy deflect says heavy weapon damage is reduced by 32% for you and allies within 10 meters. This is an okay skill card to run in horde or escape. However, in order to maximize your damage resistance, I think it's better to combine multiple damage resistance cards together, as a single standalone card on a master's level won't be helpful. For example, taking 32% less damage from a salvo rocket is probably still going to down you anyway. So I think there are better skill cards to run, or at least pair this with another card. Moving on to Soul Survivor. A reflective shell ultimate ability recharges at 320% if you are the only surviving teammate. If you're doing a solo escape run or you're the last remaining survivor in horde, this can be a great card. It reduces the ult charge time from about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to roughly 52 to 53 seconds. Once you're doing a lot of damage, you can get your ult even faster than that. So it's a highly situational card, but still really good card to run. Moving on to Blast Shield, explosive damage reduced by 32% for you and allies within 10 meters. As a standalone card, it's not really suitable for masters, but if you pair this card with like heavy deflect, you and allies will take 64% less damage from like salvo rockets within 10 meters. So if you're getting rushed by like a devastator or a salvo scion, you won't go immediately down on the first hit. It can be a great card set up for like a tank oriented horde or escape build. Again, not a good standalone card. You want to pair up the damage resistance cards, especially on the master level. 32% is not going to be a lot. Moving on to Flash Freeze. Freeze enemies with the Crowd Cannon 200% faster. This is an awesome skill card to run because if you're running cryo build in horde, you can freeze scions and bosses super fast, which allows you and your teammates to kill the enemies even faster. Because when enemies are frozen, you can deal 3 times more damage to it from all sources. It's a fun card to run, and you'll see some footage of the cryo build later on in the video. Moving on to Freeze Resist. Time to freeze is 95% slower. This is a good skill card to run in horde, like for your horde dailies or escape hives that have freezing mutators. Because it basically makes you immune to any freezing effect. And not that you won't die with the card on. It's just that you won't immediately die once you get shot by like a freezing sniper or a freezing drone. You have some time to evade, and you have some tankiness against that. So good card to run for those situations. Alrighty, moving on to Grub Magnet. It says dealing headshot damage to an enemy forces it to attack you for 7 seconds. This is an okay skill card to run. However, I've noticed that enemies seem to aggro more to the gunner anyway when you try to mark them. The consistency of which enemy may shoot you in your ultimate is kind of random. Sometimes they shoot you, sometimes they don't pay attention to you at all. But this can be a decent card to deflect any attention away from your teammates for a few seconds. Maybe a beginner card. Certainly not a card I like to run on master difficulty very often. Experiment with it. Let me know if it works. I used to run it back when Gunner was new and never found it really too great of a card. But let me know what you think. If you find this card pretty good, maybe it might be. Heavy shell, reflective shell can reflect projectiles for 6 seconds. So this card allows the gunner to reflect projectiles like boom shots, drop shots, salvo, rockets, snatcher, and pouncer quills, meteoric spike, things like that back at the enemy. Stacks well with reflective shredder, so you can reflect projectiles and cause 55% bleeding damage to the enemy. It's a great card to use, but one thing to note is that bullets and projectiles fired by your teammates, like a boom shot, like if you have a demo shooting a boom shot, it can, with the heavy shell card on, the boom shot can reflect off the gunner's shield and go back to the teammate. So be cautious of that. Of using your ultimate, you probably want to be far away to the spawn or away from your team so that you can't get shot at. So be wary of that. Moving on to Phoenix Armor. When a teammate revives you from DBNO, you receive 30% stim. This can be a useful card to run in conjunction with Grace Period, since you receive 5 seconds of immunity from that card, and then you'll get some stim once you get revived. The extra stim can provide a gunner with a little cushion if he needs to retreat back to safety. Since gunners run with heavy weapons all the time, pretty much, this can be useful. This extra stim can provide the gunner with a little bit of extra health so they can get back to safety. So it could be useful for that. As long as you have a class like a combat medic or a teammate nearby, like an engineer that can revive you, you can make use of this card. Personally, it's not a card that I'd ever use since you're relying on other classes to make use of it. Moving on to practice every day, it says 30% faster reload speed, 60% larger active reload window, and bypass reload when firing during a reflective shell. So basically, it allows the class to shoot whatever weapon they choose, lancer, sniper, boom shot, torque bow, whatever. Maybe without reloading during the gunner's ultimate. Most of the time I see a gunner play, they're either shooting a mulcher, a salvo, a tri-shot, a torque bow, or neither shooting anything at all during their ult. This is an okay beginner skill card to use, but I think there are much better skill cards I prefer over this one. Moving on to tank synergy. When the gunner's class is 10 meters away from pilot class, both receive 30% damage resistance. This is an okay beginner card to run, as long as you have a pilot present. You could run this card in conjunction with other damage resistance cards, but since it requires another class to be present, I think there are better skill cards to use than this one. And then, of course, if you're running score boost or epic score boost, if you're running a high score run in Horde or timed run in Escape, you can equip those cards to help you get more gears coins, skill cards, leaderboard times, or whatever reward you may be seeking. So those cards are always available for that purpose. And that'll pretty much wrap up all the skill cards. The gunner's got a lot of them, 22 in fact. Moving on, I'm going to be talking about some of the Horde and Escape builds that I like to run. Alrighty guys, moving on to the Horde and Escape builds part of the video here. For my basic Horde build, which involves using the torque bow and the salvo to stun the enemies, I like to run Reflect Shredder, Serrated Edge, Heavy Capacity, Team Resist, and Concussive Explosives. And being Team Resist is the card that I like to swap out, depending on the build that I run. So if I'm running a Mulcher build, I will swap it out with Heavy Charger or Mulcher Mastery to get the ultimate faster or to do more damage with the Mulcher. If I'm running the Cryo build, I'll take off Team Resist and run Flash Freeze. And if you're going full Cryo build and you have maybe a pilot in the game, so you don't need to do as much stunning. You can take off concussive explosives and run the flash freeze and freeze resist cards. You can freeze enemies faster and be resistant to getting frozen yourself. For the escape build, I like to run Reflex Shredder, Heavy Shell, Heavy Capacity, Concussive Explosives, and Bait Armor. So yeah, Heavy Capacity is really useful because why would you not want more ammo, right? You can get salvos and mulchers. Scions are pretty frequent in escape. The card that I normally swap out here is Bait Armor. Because the other 4 cards are just too useful. If there's torque bows available via Elite Hunters, I like to run Serrated Edge instead. If it's a longer ult charge hive, I like to run Heavy Chargers so you can get your ultimate faster by dealing damage with the Mulcher or the Salvo. On hives where I need my teammates to get their ult mags faster, I like to run Ultimate Battery. So the gunner can keep going down and being revived over and over again, and nearby teammates will start getting ult charge from it. If you're doing like a speedrun type setup, like running through the onslaught or the surge or something where you need to get past certain part of the hive, I like to run team resist, as it gives your teammates a 95% resistance. Soul Survivor is really good to run if you're running alone. And then another card you can maybe swap with is Freeze Resist. If you're running that cryo build, Freeze Resist is also really good if you got freezing mutators on. So that's pretty much the Horde and Escape builds. I'll have a slide summarizing everything I just said coming up, and then right after that I'll be talking about the Horde perks. Alrighty guys, moving on to the Horde perks. The gunner's got damage, ultimate duration, health, and ammo, chain gun ammo regen. So the first perk I like to perk up is damage. At level 10 it gives you 50% extra damage. So this is overall damage, ballistic, explosive, even stacks with this reflective shell, so you do more bleeding damage back to the enemies. Great perk to have because why wouldn't you want more damage, right? The salvo I know goes from 1500 per rocket to 2250 per rocket. So definitely the first perk I like to perk up in my Horde games on this gunner. No matter pretty much what build I am choosing to run, it's always the first perk I do. Moving on to ultimate duration, says increase. This perk increases the ult duration by 100%. So one of the drawbacks of the gunner class is that his ultimate duration is only 6 seconds, but with this perk you can get it up to 12 seconds. So that's 12 seconds of near immortality, 12 seconds of being able to go revive the team if you need to, 12 seconds of reflecting and bleeding damage all the enemies. Pretty good having the ultimate that long. Health is the next one I usually do. 50% max health. Makes the character a little stronger. Can't really complain about that. I mean, you can sponge a little more bullets. And works really well in conjunction with his skill cards and his passive, which is healing anyway. So great perk to run. The last perk I don't always perk because you need to basically be running a mulch or a tri-shot build. Otherwise, you're not going to really have any use of it. So it's 100% ammo regen for chain guns. So a chain gun is basically a mulch or a tri-shot, right? At level 10, you basically will never run out of mulcher ammo or tri-shot ammo. I believe it recharges about 5 mulcher bullets a second, or 3 to 4 tri-shot bullets a second. And with the heavy capacity card on, you're pretty much never going to run out of ammo. I think you have 538 ultra rounds and 301 tri-shot rounds. So with this perk max, you are pretty much good. As long as you don't lose a mulcher, you're pretty much golden to go spray and pray into the spawn all game long. Great perk to have if you're running that build. And moving on, and that'll pretty much wrap up the tutorial, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Coming up, I'll have some gunner gameplay. It'll show the torque bow and salvo build that I normally run. That's the normal build I run. You'll see mulcher and tri-shot build footage as well. You'll see some cryo build footage, the freeze build, and then some escape footage as well. And thank you all so much for watching. See y'all in the next video. Peace.
Come on, shoot me like you mean it! I can do this all day! Only one left! Come on, shoot me like you mean it! Open your mind! Good to go! Shoot me like you mean it! Reject spotted! You cannot kill me! Come on, shoot me like you mean it!
Time to do some damage!
Let's do this!
I am in the zone!
You're fucked!
I'll take that. Sentry reloaded! You gotta get me up! I need ammo!
You cannot kill me! Sentinel spotted! Wakatu marked! Come on, shoot me like you mean it! Look out, Predator! Still got it!
Come on, bring it!
Come on, shoot me like you